radio for a really great future. We're talking real money.
Thank you for joining us on Talking Real Money. I'm Tom Cockton McDonald with the day off. I got a special guest in just a moment, but I first want to talk to you about the problem that we all face as investors, and that is that we see the shiny object, we see something that's working, and we want to take our money and put it in that, right? It's happened over and over and over. And lately, what has it been? It's been the mega cap companies, right? The huge firms that have made the most money and the mutual funds or exchange traded funds that own them. So, but I want to talk a little bit about recent history and then going back. Wow, it's hard to believe it's been 25 years, but it has. The history a little further back that I think really demonstrates the problem with all this. And this arises because so many publications, Wall Street Journal included, publish what I call investment cheesecake. This is the stuff made to excite you, but it's really not very valuable. And in their article recently, they talked about the top stock funds that have a familiar tech-heavy feel. And the company that did the best over the last year, the end of June 2024, actively managed U.S. stock funds, a company called Alger. Alger Capital Appreciation Fund made 42.4%. The Alger Capital Appreciation Institutional Shares, 42.3%. The Alger Focus Equity Fund, 42.0%. These are the top three funds, and still the fourth fund, Alger Capital Appreciation Portfolio, up 41.7%. They also had the seventh best performing fund, the Alger Spectra, all making over 40% in the last year. So you get all excited and think, wait, I've found this great company. I got to give them my money. And by the way, Alger's been around since 64. So this is not a new story. Just the way they're managing the money has been a little more focused than I would want you to. Then this is a look at the best performing mutual funds again, going back over the last year. And so Alger's had this huge run. Gee, I wonder why. Well, they have overweighted, none of this will surprise you, to stocks like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta Platforms, etc. These huge companies that have done really well. Amazon, Apple, Tesla, by the way, Microsoft. These are the firms that did really well in the last few weeks, have not done as well. But what happens here is the thing that really strikes at my heart, because I hate seeing you as investors get sucked up in this. You see this performance, you see what's going on in the marketplace, and you think, I got to have a piece of that. I've got to own that. And by the way, the Alger Capital Appreciation Fund, ACAAX, charges an expense ratio of 1.28% a year, 1.28% a year. And it's not that big a fund. It's a $1.9 billion fund. So what do we take away from this? What is the lesson to be learned here? Because I can guarantee you one thing. I will look at these funds again here at the end of the third quarter, and they will have had a lot of what in the industry is called flows, a lot of money that has moved into this because the performance has been so good. But when I read this, it reminded me of another fund family, this one based in Denver, Colorado, called the Janus Funds. And those of you old enough can remember what happened with the Janus Funds back in the 2000, 2001, 2002. You go back to 1990, the Janus Funds were tiny. They had $1 billion under management in 1990. That roared up to $300 billion by 2000. Still can remember the stories then where they couldn't hire enough people in the mailroom to open the checks that were coming in. So many envelopes were coming in, they couldn't even get them cashed. But it turned out that what happened was all of those funds that they had, that similar performance to this, red hot, they owned the same stocks: Cisco, Nokia, Microsoft, AOL, Time Warner. And if those of you old enough to remember can remember what happened in the early 2000s, all of those went straight down. Their global tech fund, it lost 84% of its value from 2000 to 2002. It also owned another company you may recognize called Enron. It didn't turn out well for Enron. It did not really turn out that well for the Janus Funds, but it has a strikingly similar look to me, and I know the people at Alger are going to hate me for saying it, to these Alger funds, because they are not diversified. They are pretty expensive, and they are so concentrated in a few of the companies that have done so very, very well recently that I think you should absolutely 100% ignore them and ignore the Wall Street Journal when they give you this advice, if you can call it that, because it is really meant to excite. It is a horse race that you should pay absolutely no attention to and instead focus on building the right asset classes. You know, and I know somebody else who knows that as well, and she's kind enough to jump in on the podcast on a regular basis. Roxy Butner, thank you for being part of this again.
So glad to be here.
You do a great job of this. We get so many great compliments. And Roxy's job is to do a couple of things. It's to pick some questions to ask me and then come up with an answer better than the one I've got. So I'm feeling very comfortable about both parts of that. So you go right ahead. These are questions that come to us from talkingrealmoney.com. I know we're kind of backlogged right now because I was gone for a while. Don's kind of out on the road, so we're not as organized as we normally be. But we'll try to catch up here in the next few weeks. But today's program, Roxy's got some questions, and you go right ahead.
Perfect. So our first question is from Joey in Wayne, New Jersey. And he asks, "Hi, Tom and Don. Thanks for keeping investing advice simple and the show funny. My wife and I are 30, and our income this year will be pushing the limits for Roth IRA contributions. We both currently make all Roth contributions to our 401ks. Should we be making pre-tax contributions to our 401k in order to also fully fund our Roth IRAs? Or is it better to fund a traditional IRA and do backdoor Roth?"
Okay, so let's just go back. And I know you're going to have a great answer for this. But first of all, the only reason ever to do a backdoor Roth is that your income is too high to do a regular Roth contribution. And I think for tax year 2024, it's like $210,000 or something. $230,000 household income. So the only reason, Joey, that you couldn't do a traditional Roth is if your income as a household is greater than the $230,000. But then this is a little confusing when you read this. It's like, where should I invest? Because in a general sense, if you're 30 and your tax burden is, let's just say for argument, the 24% bracket, I might tell you to do both, to do the Roth after tax and then to do the traditional in the 401k, or maybe even in the 401k to do some regular and some traditional. But I know you got a better answer to all this than I do. This is very complicated, Joey, but let's let Roxy give it her best shot here.
It is complicated. And just to kind of clarify for the listeners here. So basically they're talking about trying to reduce their taxable income so that they can get under that limit to make the Roth IRA contributions by playing with their 401ks. And instead of doing Roth contributions, doing pre-tax contributions. And by the way, this is a strategy that we use all the time with our clients. It takes a little bit of work because you have to go in and kind of project what your income is going to be throughout the year and do a little bit of tax planning. So there's a few things to consider here. I mean, the very first question I would ask them is, what are your balances across pre-tax accounts and Roth accounts? So you can absolutely, if you don't have any IRA balances, traditional IRAs, then you can absolutely continue doing the Roth 401k contributions and do a backdoor Roth. If you're very, very Roth focused, then you could certainly do that. But
don't you think you should be Roth focused at 30? I mean, because think of all those years you get of tax-free growth. It's so powerful.
Absolutely. But the other side of it, right, is you are in a higher tax bracket right now. Maybe if you've only been saving towards Roth, you're going to have mostly Roth money in retirement. Maybe you're only going to have Social Security. Maybe your income tax bracket is going to be lower there. So yeah, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of a pre-tax bucket. So I think it depends on a couple factors. And the other thing is, how simple do you want to make your life? It can get a little complicated to do tax planning and try and figure out what your income is going to be. So the backdoor Roth might just be an easier solution. But again, talk to your financial planner or tax planner to figure out what makes sense for you.
Yeah, I mean, this whole gets asked a lot, especially of young people, kind of like, should I do pre-tax or should I do Roth? Now, we do not know what tax rates are going to be after, I think, like 2025, right? I mean, it's still up in the air. We certainly don't know what they're going to be when you retire in 30 years. It's going to matter a lot more to you at that point than me. But the thing is, that's why I kind of like, putting my foot in both courts, because then I'm kind of like, well, I've hedged my bets here a little bit. I took a tax deduction today. On the first part of the money, I didn't take it on the second. So at 30, I kind of like saving in both of those, and I hate the term, but buckets, because I think it leaves your options open for later in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Second question we have here is from Kevin in Kansasville, Wisconsin. He says, I recently inherited an IRA. The money will be a blessing, but the IRS rules are a real pain. Are inherited 401ks treated the same as inherited IRAs? i.e. the 10-year rule, etc. Would there be an advantage to leaving the money in the 401k plan instead of rolling it into an IRA when I retire?
Well, Kevin, I'll give you this. You're right. It's very complicated. And just more discussion, more rules issued on this just like in the last week or something, because there's a big difference between inheriting an IRA as a spouse and a non-spouse, right? That's one. And then number two is this aspect of sort of where the money should reside, because I'm not sure. I don't know the rules. You're going to have to tell me, and I know you will, about inheriting a 401k versus an IRA. Isn't it? Is it any different?
Pretty much the same.
Okay, I was wondering if that might be the difference. And so here's the reason that I would prefer to move the money from the 401k to an IRA, just because it's easier to access. It's harder to get money out of a 401k. There's more steps to it. It's just a more complex process. And certainly some companies make it reasonable. We deal with this every day because we're moving people's money from 401ks to IRAs. Some make it very hard. Some it's a phone call. Some it's all this documents. There isn't one set way to do it. So I'd probably, and then part two of that, frankly, Kevin, would be once you're in the IRA, your options for investing the money are generally better. But okay, let's just go back though, because the spousal versus non-spousal rules. With a spousal inherited IRA, you can move the money into, the spouse can move it into their own account, correct? That's one. Or they can, if the RMDs are already being taken now under the new rules, you have to continue to take those and use up all the money in 10 years. Is that correct?
Yes. So it really depends on, it sounds like in this case, it may not be a spousal beneficiary, or Kevin may not be, but there's a huge difference. And if you are the spouse inheriting a 401k or an IRA, it almost always makes sense to transfer that into, do what's called a spousal IRA, where you transfer it into a 401k or an IRA in your name. And if you are a non-spouse, they just came out with these new kind of provisions. Well, the provisions actually always been there, but they've kind of finalized the provisions. So just like a spouse, when you do inherit a 401k or an IRA, you can take a lump sum from an inherited 401k or IRA without penalty, but it'll be taxable as income. So you can do that from either account. If you inherit the account after 2020, that's where the rules started to get a little bit more confusing. So you'll be subject to that 10-year rule, which means that 10 years after, December 31st of the year of death, you have to deplete the entire account.
Everything's got to be out of it and the tax paid.
So the big question was, do we still have to take a little bit each year, or can we let it grow until year 10? And so what they came out and kind of finalized was that, yes, they want you to take out a little bit each year, and it has to be at least how much the original account owner was taking. So
if they were taking required minimum distributions, you need to take that much out too and pay the tax on it.
Yeah.
So complicated.
It's so complicated. But, to kind of go back to, his question, whether it's at a 401k or an IRA, you're still going to have to adhere to these rules. And it's just going to make your life easier to probably have it in a traditional IRA.
Traditional IRA, move it from the 401k to the IRA and deal with it there.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this is another one of these contentions that I think you've heard me say before, that why don't we just make this easy and make everything Roth eventually? In other words, take no deductions today. Just put the money in there, pay the tax on it, then it grows tax free. And then whatever happens to that money, it's just tax free. So there's not all these complex. It just makes it so it's the Advisor Full-Time Employment Act, I guess, Roxy. You got a job.
Exactly.
Good job. You get to keep your job. All right. What else we got there from the question and answers?
Okay. We have a question from Daryl in Oceanside, California. Hello, Tom and Dawn. The company I work for recently announced that they will be offering a 401k with a match of 50% up to 6%. The issue I have is that I have already put in $8,000 into my traditional IRA earlier this year. If I take advantage of the 401k this year, I will lose the tax advantage for the traditional IRA contribution for the 2024 tax year. Tax savings with this IRA is about $2,000. In addition, on this $8,000 down the road, I will be paying taxes again when I pull the money out of the IRA. So I will be double taxed on that money. Conversely, I estimate with the 401k starting soon, the company contribution to my 401k would be an estimated $1,500 for this year. What should I do? Should I hold off on the 401k until next year? Is there something I can do with this year's contribution of $8,000 to avoid paying taxes down the road? Or should I just bite the bullet, take the 401k now, and pay the extra taxes down the road with this year's contribution and say, c'est la vie? Thank you. I look forward to your response.
Well, first of all, Daryl, you spelled c'est la vie right. So I'm very impressed by I could say it, but I don't think I could spell it. So that's good. I want to make sure I'm understanding this question because I don't know if his assumption is correct. In other words, if you put money into an IRA this year and then you start putting money into a 401k, you can do both.
You can do both, but if you're over a certain amount of income, then you can't take the tax deduction
On the IRA.
on the IRA.
I see.
If you are sponsored by a 401k plan through work and contributing and over a certain amount of income, then you don't get the tax
And how much
deduction.
income are we talking about? Do you have any idea?
I'd have to double check on that one.
But there is a limit.
There's a limit.
Okay. So he could face the situation he said where he would have put the money in and not gotten the deduction. And then as he put it, I'm getting double taxed, I guess.
Correct.
So I could see what he's saying there a little bit. Yeah, that's true. So I don't know what to do. What do you think?
I think first and foremost, he shouldn't leave any free money on the table. So he should definitely take advantage of the employer match. And then I actually think it's an easier solution than maybe he thinks, because we do see this all the time where people make contributions to Roth IRAs or IRAs and they're over certain income limits. We work with Charles Schwab for a lot of our clients, and they have a really easy, simple way to remove excess contributions. So quite honestly, I think you just go to your custodian and see if you can remove that $8,000, contribute to your 401k. And then if you can do a backdoor Roth, you could potentially take advantage of that option, or you could just put it in a taxable account and have it growing for you.
I think that's excellent advice. In this case, then you'd be going back to the custodian, the holder of that money, and saying, what are my options? Here's the situation.
And generally they allow you to remove, IRA contributions for various reasons.
Sounds like that might be the best thing to do in this case, because I love what you said too. Don't miss out on that free money.
Yeah.
It's shocking how few people take full advantage of that.
Because otherwise you have to file Form 8606 with the IRS.
Oh, not the dreaded 8606.
To say that you had a non-deductible IRA contribution and keep track of that for the next however many years. So go ahead and figure out if you can remove it.
This is, I think most people think financial advisors are just sitting around picking stocks and deciding what's going on in the market and what the election is going to be. There's more of this that goes into financial advising than people realize, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. All these one-off scenarios and questions and ways that people can kind of go about handling their money. It's
fascinating to me, the number of those questions that we get on a regular basis, too. So, hey, great answers today, as always. Good question. Good pick on the questions, too. We'll do this again. And I want to congratulate you on your fine class you just did here on building wealth and financial independence. You did that with Joyce, and that will be up online, available here in the next couple of days. So people go to Appella Wealth and click on events to see that. And speaking of things coming up, Don and I will be back in West Hartford. I finally got this right. West Hartford, Connecticut, to do Retire Meet on the 18th of October. And there's only a few seats available in person. So if you want to come and see us, say hi and join what's going to be a great day of chats about all things retirement, go to retiremeet.com. You can sign up right there. And as I say, there'll also be an online version if you don't want to make the trip to West Hartford. Further, one more thing coming up pretty fast here. We just had a great time in Madison, Wisconsin, met with a lot of nice people, had a fun cookout there with the brats, beer, and burgers. Really good day. And I'm going to go to Portland on the 20th of September and meet with people as well. Portland, Oregon. So if you're down there in the Oregon or Southwest Washington area and you want to get an hour of my time, I'm going to take the 20th of September and do the exact same thing. So simply go to talkingrealmoney.com and click on Meet an Advisor. Just tell me you want to get together when I'm down in Portland. That's the 20th of September. All of those things designed to help you make better investment decisions, to help you get a pathway, a plan to the future, which many of you overlook, and to really make sure you're doing everything to pull your way. That's another, we just learned about all the people that move money from a 401k to an IRA and then don't invest it and have left millions of dollars on the table. So let's make sure you're doing everything you can. We're here to help you do exactly that. Roxy, as always, great job. And it's a pleasure to have you on here.
Thanks so much. It's
fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. You can learn more about Roxy Butner, too, by going to appellawealth.com and look at the advisors there in our Bellevue office. Thank you all for being part of Talking Real Money. Our job is to be here every day to help you get all this right. And that's why we are Talking Real Money.
The opinions and views expressed on this podcast were current on the date recorded. Opinions, estimates, forecasts, and statements of financial market trends that are based on current market conditions constitute our judgment and are subject to change without notice, including any forward-looking estimates or statements which are based on certain expectations and assumptions.
Although information and opinions given have been obtained from or based on sources believed to be reliable, no warranty or representation is made as to their correctness, completeness, or accuracy.
Information presented on the podcast is not personalized investment advice from Appella Wealth. The views and strategies described may not be suitable for everyone. This podcast does not identify all the risks, direct or indirect, or other considerations which might be material to you when entering any financial transaction. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and profitable results cannot be guaranteed. We hope you realize that the information provided on Talking Real Money is for informational, educational, and hopefully enjoyable purposes only. The podcast is not trying to get you to buy or sell any financial products or securities. Instead, the program is provided as a public service by Appella Wealth, a fee-only registered investment advisor.
Please see Appella Wealth's ADV Part 2A on our website for information regarding Appella's fees and services.
Appella Capital, LLC, DBA Appella Wealth, is an investment advisory firm registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission. The firm only transacts business in the states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration with the SEC or any state securities authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Appella does not provide tax or legal advice, and nothing either stated or implied here should be inferred as providing such advice. Thanks for listening, and please visit TalkingRealMoney.com for more information and important disclosure related to performance of any specific index or fund quoted in this podcast. I think I need a nap.